Imagine spending 6 months building a product only to realize nobody wants it. What if I told you that's exactly what most startups do and that's why they fail? Today's guest, Max, is the CEO of MOS Creative, and he's seen firsthand what separates the companies that take off from the ones that disappear. In this episode, Max reveals a simple but powerful truth. Most founders don't fail because their product is bad. They fail because no one was searching for it in the first place. He breaks down a winning SEO strategy that predicts demand before you build, shares a surprising Google search that turned into a six-figure business overnight, and explains why the best startups think about marketing before they even have a product. If you want to stop rolling the dice on business and start making decisions that guarantee traction, this is the episode for you. So let's get into it.
My name is Max. I am the founder CEO of MOS Creative. We're a software development and digital agency. And obviously it could be so many different things, software development, digital agency, but pretty much what we do is we'll work with entrepreneurs and startups and fast growing companies to help them plan, design, build, launch, and support and drive traffic to web, mobile applications, and software. That's in a nutshell, right? There's more things that I can kind of unravel through our conversation, but that's kind of what we do. So clients, the type of clients that we work with is entrepreneurs that might have an idea, startups that are trying to innovate and grow something big, or established companies that might want to create better processes, automation, or just build internal software, or even external software to be able to help them grow. So we help them all the way from the initial idea stage all the way to launch, and then also driving traffic through content and SEO.
And was there a gap in the market that kind of led you to start your own company? What kind of put you on this journey?
Sure. So there was definitely a gap. I got started specifically, well, in business, I got started right out of college. So as I tell people, I've never really had a full-time job. I've always had a overtime job because as entrepreneurs, you're always working. Doesn't matter if it's weekends, nights, right? You always have to be on. So you got to hopefully enjoy what you do. But yeah, we started because actually I had a business partner because we had a need for ourselves. We were in a whole different other business in entertainment, specifically in the nightclub world. We needed to market, we needed to drive traffic, we needed to create landing pages, and we started creating this all on our own. We're like, oh my God, this is so cool, right? Because before that, I had a different business. It was a print management company. And print management company can only go so far. Still a commodity business, so a lot of times, yes, it's relationships, but it's mostly price, right? With what we're doing now in terms of building software, it's consulting. It's the value of understanding how to solve a specific problem, how to create something that's different, how to take something from the idea stage to market as quick as possible, how to drive traffic to it, how to be able to scale, right? That's not just a commodity that anybody can provide. So at a certain point when we started doing this, we had a conversation and we were like, listen, this is going to be our future. And we just started filling the gap for ourselves and then started finding clients, obviously, that also needed that gap filled. But I think the biggest gap was also between building the product or planning, designing, building, because there's so many parts to it, right? That's why I kind of like to divide it into 5 sections: plan, design, build, launch, support and maintain, which is the same thing, and then market. But the building and the marketing, that filling that gap between the two, I think is critical. And you still don't have a lot of companies that do that. It's either usually software development or it's marketing. But if you understand the marketing before software development, like why are you developing the software, right? Who is your market? Why would they care? Why would they use it? That, I think, creates a better product and creates more results.
That's so interesting because I think it's really overlooked, like the idea of taking the marketing perspective and applying it early on. There's a really kind of stupid example I can give, but I know there's a kid who's like, I think at 19, no, maybe even younger, he started a company selling chocolate that has like certain aphrodisiac properties.
Understood.
Fully started this company because he knew it would go viral. Like the entire business model was, I'm going to make this chocolate because it can go viral on TikTok. And that's what happened. Like he literally took a completely backwards approach and like reverse engineered the product from the marketing strategy, and it ended up working.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know
Smart.
why. Yeah, for sure. And they had this really creative strategy with getting creators to build their own accounts and market the product on their own accounts as individual creators instead of under a bigger umbrella, because then they couldn't get like flagged, and it was just, they built this huge
Wow.
ecosystem. It was crazy.
Interesting.
I think the chocolate company is called Tabs. You could probably find some interviews with him on YouTube if you want to learn more. But that's kind of what
Wow.
this reminds me of in the more technical, obviously the more technical side. But I think it's such a rare perspective that I don't really find. And most people approach product design as like, okay, here's a problem I want to fix. Here is how I'm going to fix it. And often technical people aren't thinking about necessarily the creative marketing and the positioning later on. So I think that's a
Yeah.
really, really
Well,
good gap.
to your point, since you create a product to run it through TikTok and drive traffic, you probably saw that people were asking about something similar. Maybe not exactly, but something similar.
Yeah, exactly. He did. I think he
Yeah.
mentioned he saw someone doing it, but they weren't doing it well. And he decided to just take the idea and do it himself because he knew the barrier for entry was high enough that most people wouldn't go out there and find their own suppliers for
Yeah.
chocolate and ingredients and stuff. So I think that's like actually exactly what he did.
I heard a funny story one time. So when we started working with clients, I asked them, how do they come up with this idea? What do they have this problem? How do they come up with this, right? A lot of times it's usually a individual problem or situation, right, for their benefit, or maybe they've spoken to somebody else, but they don't really take like a more broader approach. One of the main things I recommend to people is just go on Google. I mean, go on TikTok. Well, I guess these days if you have TikTok still installed on your phone, but go to like an Instagram, go on Meta, right, on Facebook, search, right? It's a search engine. It's going to give you intuitive result, like search from other searches that you can be like, oh, let me click on this, right? And if you open and see no results, especially in Google, and there's a lot of searches, there's no results, then there's a market. And a funny story that I heard one time, there was a guy that had a recruiting agency for adult industry, specifically for males,
Okay.
right? The way he came up with this idea was because he saw that there was an opening. He saw that there was a huge gap to fill, right? Meaning there was searches. How do I become a porn star? How to get into adult industry? But there was no websites providing this. So we created like a recruiting directory, if you will. He was pretty much a staffing company, right? Like, so you would fill
That's
out a form,
crazy.
but I was like, that's genius.
Yeah.
That's genius. There's actually a really good documentary on Netflix about, and not that I have a whole bunch of knowledge in the adult industry, but it's a really good documentary on Netflix about Pornhub. And they said one of the ways that the reason why Pornhub became a household name, if you will, I guess it depends which household, right? Household name was because when they started, because it's a tech company, all it is a tech company. When they started, they wanted to rank for the first 5 spots. So every time, whatever your fantasy is, if you would be searching, they would be pretty much above the fold. So they were like, oh, okay. And then just became, it's branding, it's
So
repetition,
they're masters of SEO, basically.
but it's genius.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If you think about it, like that's a competitive industry, right? Because there's just so much out there. But if you think about it, I'm like, very interesting. They took that approach. And again, this guy, I heard this at a presentation. He brought this up. I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That is such a good idea. You're searching for things that, maybe you overheard, maybe you saw on social media site, maybe you heard at a conference. You do a little research. You see that there's no companies filling that gap, but there's searches. You're going to be the first one.
Yeah.
So
I
works.
wonder if I wonder if there's a way to capture, like, do you think maybe there is a platform that actually captures highly searched but not highly provided answers? Like,
Yeah, there's several. In SEO, there's like SEMrush or Ahrefs, which are probably the two biggest platforms. You can see the how many searches there's for some specific keywords and keyword difficulty, or if there's competition, how much competition there is. But yeah, there's tools. Yeah, that would have been an
yeah.
amazing tool to put out into the market, but there's already tools for that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess probably like e-commerce or those kinds of stores probably have something that they use to figure out what products are saturated or
Yeah,
not and what are in demand.
for sure.
So, what secrets do you have for companies that want to rank highly on Google or maybe want to have a little better chance of getting discovered?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it depends if it's a local company specifically with that they want to rank within local maps, or they want to rank within Google search. New cool thing that we started testing with recently that's been really, really effective is a lot of times businesses or websites or webmasters of the website spend too much time try to rank their content through a blog on their website. Okay, meaning they find a keyword, they find keywords, they create certain keyword clusters, let's say like 5 main parent keywords and maybe 3 to 5 child keywords under each parent keyword, right? And then they create a whole bunch of content, maybe good content. A lot of times people don't even know what content to create. So really good advice that I would recommend. Look at the answers on Google. People also ask. It's a good way to know what type of blog post to create to answer the questions that people also ask on Google. That's just a simple connection, right? But what we've started testing with, it's been very effective as well, is to take the keywords that make sense, right? And just create some content. It doesn't have to be the most polished content. Create kind of like a staging site, not your live site, not your production site, and create a staging site and post that content. Maybe even just create it with ChatGPT or Gemini, right? So just so that as long as it makes sense and it's relevant, obviously, to the keywords, and the keywords repeat several times through that content piece, but just test it, meaning have that keyword, have the blog post with a title, right? Have the actual blog written out. If you notice, a lot of times in Google AI overview, or there's a feature snippet, when you're above the fold, usually they're numerical or bullet points. That's why like a lot of websites have FAQs, right? So post that into your blog post it on a staging site, and take a couple days and see if you get a response. Meaning not a response from traffic, but if Google indexes it and ranks it. It usually takes about up to 24 hours, sometimes even a couple hours. The reason why I'm recommending to do that is because that is a quick way to know, okay, you know what? These keywords, let's say you have 5 keywords, let's say 2 of them rank on the first page, or 1 of them ranks closer to the first page, but somewhere on the second page, and then the rest 2 or 3 rank on page 5 and 10. You know that those other keywords, don't even waste your time on, especially if it's a competitive space.
Yeah.
But focus only on the ones that are either already on the first page or close to the first page, right? Because that takes the time away from the work that you're going to be doing that might never actually result in the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a good, right?
It was gold.
It works very, very, very
Yeah.
well. So that's one thing. In terms of Google business profile, if like you're a local business, there's several things that can be done. Simple things. Just make sure you have the right categories chosen in your Google business profile. A lot of times it's if you use a keyword, if possible, if that's within your business name, if you use a keyword that's relevant to your business within the title as well, that'll help you boost up right away. And another really, really good, effective tactic as well is if your customers leave you a review, if they write about your service, let's say, for example, for MOS Creative, they write an amazing experience with MOS Creative for, let's say, web development. They also help me with SEO. That's some of our keywords, right? And then we respond also saying about these services. It's kind of like several times that we refer
Yeah.
to the services, which is a keyword which helps Google to recognize, oh, they must know what they're doing. We got to move them up, because obviously reviews are a very, very big factor for especially Google business profile. So Google business profile functions outside of your website. It's kind of like its own profile, if you will. You don't even need a website for it. It does help to have a website, but you don't need a website. But I'm saying reviews are top 3 factors. So if you have good reviews, and if you're including, or if your customers are including keywords, and if you're including keywords and response, it boosts it up.
And I'm also curious because I know they have slightly different way of ranking search
Yeah.
results. Like if you use an LLM to recommend things, it's not necessarily going to give you the same results as Google. So I
Right.
know it's a little bit mysterious still with how it works, but do you have any insights into strategies you can use to help your
Yeah. So
rankings with
some of the
those?
things that I've seen as a pattern, just even with like the Google AI overview, simple answers, meaning that's why bullet points, that's why numerical answers, that's why FAQs, they want simple, straightforward, like question, answer, right? That's why a lot of pages, a lot of websites start including FAQs. And again, if you're using questions from people also asking Google and answers to those questions, that's going to help you with Google search and it's going to help you with Google AI overview. That's just some of the simple tactics that could definitely help rank a page higher and get ranked in Google AI overview, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever.
Cool. So, what about other parts of the process? Obviously, SEO comes a bit later, but let's go back. I guess you said design, build.
Planning, design, build, launch, and then maintenance and support.
Okay, do you have any like big piece of advice for each of those
Yes,
phases?
good question. Well, planning, I mean, if you're building even just a website, web application, mobile application software, I think planning is key. I know everybody's so like focused on agile, but initially, I don't think you can really do agile unless you have a committed team. So we're very hybrid, approach. Initially, especially if you're a startup and you have an initial budget for that first MVP, first phase of your project, you have to plan it out. That was in the podcast earlier, and I told the guy, it's kind of like building a house. That's really what I compare it to. You want to build a house, right? You might want a $2 million mansion, $5 million mansion, but you can't afford it. You're not going to go to a developer and be like, I want that house. Because they'll be like, okay, sure, it's going to be this much, right? You're going to go to an architect and engineer, which you have to go to anyway, especially if it's a new house, or if it's a house that you're kind of like changing to your liking. And you're going to say, I want this type of house, but I might be on this budget. Okay. So the engineer and the architect plan it out, the blueprint, right? So planning, I think, is critical because that's usually, as I like to refer to it, it's when assumptions happen from both sides, from the client side, from the contractor, developer, team, whatever, right? From both sides. But the problem is that when you have these assumptions and not clear expectations, like they're understanding each other exactly what this is, right? And what the final product is, or at least the first phase of the product, then you have a lot of gaps. So planning, I think, is critical to make sure that the product owner, CEO, founder, whatever, is planning it out correctly with project manager, product owner, whoever it is, right? To make sure that everything's thought through throughout full process, the full flow from sign up to onboarding to, the authentication. What kind of authentication? If there's messaging, is that there's profiles, right? Like you look at, let's say, Facebook today, if you go to it, there's crazy amount of settings. It definitely didn't start with all the settings. That just kind of came with the market grown, with the need, with questions, with concerns, right? So planning it out, really what that initial product looks like, that's, I would say, is critical. And I don't mean by planning just writing out a scope. Like what we do is we write out the scope, write out a technical scope, but we also create or use examples as mockups to show connections, because those connections is even more critical than just saying like, here's a user story of a specific user, how to get from point A to point B. So we either use examples for previous projects or, apps that are out there, or we just create low fidelity mockups, like
Yeah.
UX mockups, right?
Yeah.
We mock them up, we connect them exactly the flow, just a lot more of a logical flow than anything else. And then from there, we design the UX UI. Once we design UX UI, we create a clickable prototype. Again, from what has been already planned out, we create that clickable prototype. The reason why we do this is so that, you have an illusion of a full app without the code behind it, which usually costs the most. So once that's created and then reviewed and the client reviews it, if there's any updates, it's a lot quicker and cheaper to make any updates, revisions, edits, whatever, in a clickable prototype than building
Yeah.
it and then making fixes.
Of course.
And then once that's done, then you know how it's going to work, how it's going to look, and then development begins. Once development gets done, then you test it, and then you launch, and then obviously you launch if it's an app store, if it's a web app online, if it's a website online, if it's both, and then you maintain, support it, and market it.
And how do you guys approach testing or validating the product? Some people maybe skip on this a little bit too much, I think, and they miss out on a lot of opportunity to uncover early on ways that they could better improve the product.
No, that's a great question. Well, I think testing should start with a UX UI, a clickable prototype. You have an audience, like I tell everybody, and like people that run like Kickstarter campaigns or any of those campaigns, they have been very good in communicating to their customers, start marketing before you even run the campaign. So you have that list. So I tell everybody as well, when we start communicating, like, hey, do you have already alpha group, beta group, whoever it is, like just initial group of people that have this need, will understand it, will use it, will be like, yeah, this is great. Or even if you just want to get a group of people together, get them together, right? Have a set of questions, right? There's a really good book by Google Ventures called Sprint that talks about it as well. A lot of times they didn't build products like a full product. They build these facades, right? Just to kind of create a solution and get feedback from how people would use it before they would actually build it out. So tell people, listen, have a list. Keep them updated of the process. Once you have this, ask them the right questions so you get feedback, so you really understand what pain point are you serving. So you have potential customers, right? Reach out on LinkedIn and have an interview. Be like, you are an expert in your field. I wanted to get some feedback because we're trying to build this product. Not only will you be able to get good feedback, but you could also potentially get a customer once that product, the web product, the mobile product is built. And then once the actual UX UI clickable prototype is done, send it to them, have them review it, but with a specific process, right? Not just like, oh, here you go. Have them review it, give feedback. That's the testing. That's the initial testing, right? And then make needed updates just to make sure you're not over adding or under, you're not adding not enough features. And then from there, once it's developed, then I was test like we usually test it. Then we have the client test it, and then have them test it in a closed environment, and then go live.
Has there ever been a case where someone came to you with a product that you were like, this is the worst idea I've ever heard? And then do you end up building it? How do you feel about taking responsibility for a project that maybe you don't really even believe in? Or are you more selective? Like, how does that process work?
It's a good question. That's a really good question. Crazy thing is, I've worked on some projects. I'm like, this is crazy. I can't believe you actually before I was more like, is there a market for this? Yeah. Did they do the right research initially? I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but I've seen crazy, look at Pet Rock, right? Like, who'd have thought? Obviously, we had nothing to do with Pet Rock, but think about it. Pet Rock, they killed it because they knew how to market. They knew how to communicate with people that I guess were lonely and just needed something, some kind of paperweight, So yes, definitely we've had some very interesting projects like that are really cool, right? And then projects like, I don't really get it. Is there really a market for this? Have we taken them on? Some, no, if it just didn't make sense at all. And just we didn't see that there was a fit also with the person that was doing it or a company that was doing it. I've also seen like really, really good ideas from founders that didn't execute properly. Because I think the thing is, you can have a great idea. If you're not executing properly, if you're not really understanding what you're doing and how you're doing, whatever that next step is, then I think it's going to be a gap as well. And there's, to tell clients initially, like, there's a big risk this is not going to work.
Yeah. So what's like the biggest reason you've seen or the most common thing that has prevented really good ideas from executing well?
I think one of the reasons is people don't leave enough money for marketing. That's the biggest gap, like can't just invest everything into the product itself. Marketing is key. You can have the best service, the best product, but if you're the best kept secret, nobody knows about it, then there's no success. That's, I would say, is the biggest problem. The second is I've seen people not hungry enough. They're like, oh, okay. Like we've had a client where, they launched it and they thought just traffic is just going to pour into it.
They're like, our website's live, we're waiting.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was like. No, so obviously that's the gap of He didn't invest properly into marketing. They didn't really plan it out. But also he was just expecting something that I'm not really sure how the thought. And we told him up front, like, this doesn't work this way. No, no, no. You don't know. We're like, okay. I would say another thing is people don't communicate enough with their audience, like to really find out. They don't have the right systems, or maybe they're not reaching out. Maybe they're not obsessed enough with the product to reach out to really gather their feedback. And I'm not saying being obsessed with the product, because it's not the right word to use, because if you fall in love, you shouldn't fall in love with the product,
It
right?
should be the
Here's what I mean.
problem, I guess. Maybe. Yeah.
Yes, because if you fall in love with the product, then if anybody tells you, no, you should change it, then you're going to be like, no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a big problem I've noticed.
Yeah.
Like when you it's your baby and you're married to it, you don't want
Yes.
to make changes. Like you're killing yourself. There's
Yes.
just yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. I've seen it as well. It's like, listen, I get it. This is your baby. You have to grow it, right? You're going to have to invest a lot of time and money into it. I understand. But if you don't listen to others, and not everybody's right? You have to listen, understand, really filter. But if you don't listen at all, then you might miss some really, really important information and key points.
Yeah, for sure. So then how do you guys approach the launching and the marketing side of things?
It's a good question. When you're saying how to drive traffic, or what
Yeah, like
specifically
let's
that's?
say product is just finished, you've done some testing, you're ready. You're like, okay, this is a good enough version. Let's go. And yeah, now you're trying to find clients or you're trying to put it out there and drive some traffic. Yeah.
Yeah, so we only do one part of marketing. We do content creation and SEO. We don't do social media advertising. We don't do, I guess we do press releases for specifically for SEO purposes, but we're not doing like PR. We're not a PR agency. We're not a Google ads or Meta ads or TikTok ads, social
Yeah.
media advertising company. So that's different. So that is important as well. You can't escape, social media. That needs to be done, especially depending on the product. What we do is we create, usually through the process with clients that are with us through the full process, planning, design, development, launch, maintenance, support, and marketing. We're creating explainer video or like video animation of the product, talking about the problem, who the audience is, when we're creating the product as well. Once we launch, if it's a mobile app, we also create a website. We start creating content. We start driving traffic to the site, because obviously you still got to go to the app store, right? So that's how we drive traffic. We try to get them ranked at the top to make sure they're seen. Like we had a productivity app we built a while back for a client, and we were trying to rank for productivity apps. It's pretty short
Competitive.
and competitive keyword.
Yeah.
We got them to like the bottom of the first page within like 2 months, which I was surprised myself. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't think it was gonna happen. And it was an interesting project actually. This is like talking about finding out about different niches, right? She was building a productivity app for mothers that were using Etsy templates for calendars.
It's funny you say that because I literally know moms that started their own Etsy stores making like digital templates and stuff.
It's insane. We got her the online lead, and I was like, "What are you trying to build?" She's like, "I'm trying to build an app for like it's a productivity app, right? It has
Yeah.
more things to it." But I said, what do you mean?" I said, "People buy calendars, design calendars." She's like, "Oh my God, on Etsy, it's a huge market." I said, "No way." So I was like, okay. I mean, I get it. Mom needs to have a calendar. Things need to be organized. So I checked it out. I was like, oh my God. Right. So that's one thing. And then I said, so here's one thing I recommended to her. I said, listen, let's see how many groups there is on Facebook. At this point, I don't know if there's more. At this point, there was like 1.2 million people in groups specifically for custom calendar templates or something like this, right? I was like, that's crazy. So I said, join groups. So this is another, like, I consulted her through the process, just as value add. We didn't charge for this as value add, like join these groups, talk to the influencer, to the organizer of the group, give him access, have him play with it, like then we were trying to, at a certain point, change to a freemium model, which never got there. Because initially it was just paid. And I was like, I don't know if people are going to go for that. Like, that's a barrier. Like, people are used to have something free, you know? So she went with the paid initially. And then she decided to change later to freemium. I wish we did freemium first, but then at a certain point, she just ran out of funds, so we weren't able to continue. But it was just so interesting. I said, you have these influencers that are organizers of millions of people. Once you break through, you don't need that many people. And then we built an API to download these templates so people can have custom templates, so they'll be able to have purchase. So pretty interesting, so if you think about it, there's a market for almost anything.
Yeah. Wow. So what's your biggest success story you've had? If you can, does any client come to mind?
Well, I mean, I've had my own product that we've launched. We built from within. We raised money. It was a really cool application when smartphones just came out. I had a business partner, like when we started doing our own thing, specifically in web design and development.
Mm-hmm.
Before there was no smartphones. It was just laptop, computer, right? Once smartphones came out, we needed to create mobile websites. So a while back, there was M dot for the mobile site before they became responsive. So we actually built a platform for ourselves because we don't want to just keep on hiring developers. We wanted designers to be able to create mobile websites within a platform for our clients. But once we did that, we're like, this is interesting. There's a big market for this. This is exactly where it's going. We launched it. We went to market. We raised money for it. It was just really cool. We were like one of the first companies to be able to do this. It was a web application. It was a mobile application. The problem that killed the company is, again, innovation, right? At a certain point, responsive became a thing. It wasn't anymore just mobile sites.
Yeah.
And the investor that we had, who also we brought on as a CEO, they don't want to change. So that was a stumbling block for us. Like at this point, it was Duda Mobile coming out. We were at like the same time. So it was very successful. Like as soon as we launched, we were signing up Sir Speedy with, I think they had at this point like 500, 600 locations. They were like, yeah, we want to go with you. We're signing up like big franchises, corporate for all. I was like, this is insane, really cool opportunity, really cool growth. This is the point where I learned difference between services company and a product company. Very different. We were doing MOS Creative. We had this product company, but MOS Creative was building this product and marketing this product. And it was product companies, as you know, this is why you get investment up front, is so that you can have this influx of cash to be able to do marketing and whatever else, hire people. So MOS Creative was supporting both. It was doing what we do for clients, and this was kind of like our client, but we were the one funding it.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. We've had several others that have been very, very successful. Some that were not successful, but it's always a learning experience.
I'm sure you guys had a ton of clients come and go. Maybe some had more success than others. And
yes,
yeah, it's crazy how things can just become irrelevant so quickly.
Yeah, especially in tech.
Yeah, and on that note, I was wondering, I keep seeing more and more about no code, low code. What are your perspectives on using this type of technology for developing? And is there any AI functionality that you guys leverage to develop a little faster, or is there a certain limit that you guys are like, okay, this is not working well? Because I think a lot of people who aren't technical are like, oh, let's just replace all the developers with ChatGPT, and then they tell their developer, okay, just use ChatGPT now. What's the problem? It knows how to code. And then you're left with kind of garbage because it doesn't work that way. So just curious on your perspective on that.
No, that's a good question. Yeah, definitely can I get a final product with ChatGPT or Llama or Gemini? There is some advantages to it. Like you can get short parts to it. That developer should still review it just to make sure. One way to utilize AI right now that I think is definitely going to be most effective is to just set up the initial structure of the project, right? Or for pages that need to be done, that needs to be developed, but you cannot build the full application with AI yet. I don't think it's going to get there anytime soon. Like a developer, software engineer, whatever you want to call that individual specifically, will always be needed, right? It's definitely going to improve to speed up the process. So instead of maybe a week, it's going to take 3 days. But testing, I mean, there's still not tools to test very well, specifically on mobile apps. For web apps, there's tools, right? If you write the script properly, there's tool for that. But for mobile apps, it's just a lot of context is missing.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I guess for websites, it's a bit easier. Like, I know there's Framer, and I'm sure there's other tools out there that kind of are starting to let you interact with the interface like you would with Figma almost. Like, you're doing the interface, whatever design, and then they can host. But I guess there's also limitations there with certain more custom approaches.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, all the like, even Wix and Squarespace, to a certain extent, they're low code builders, I think it's good to have, but I think there's different stages to all those builders, right? If you're just starting a business, yeah, Wix and Squarespace can work for you. You come in, boom, 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 knock it out, right? But then if you start advancing, maybe you want to move to WordPress because you need other plugins, you need other functionality. Are you going to need a React website? I mean, probably not, unless you have like a tech company, usually then maybe you need, and if you have a web application, then maybe you're going to need a React website. But Webflow, I mean, it's a no code or low code platform because you can work within code as well within their CMS, but it's a good platform, man. Creates really good websites, like sexy websites, interactive websites, you can pretty much do anything in there.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
And how about your own business? Like, you guys do a good job of helping clients differentiate themselves a little, make their product more valuable to their clients. So how do you guys differentiate yourselves when attracting clients? Like, how do clients find you, or how do you guys approach marketing yourselves?
Good question. While doing podcasts like this, that's one. Creating content, definitely educational content, telling them here's what you have to go through. So if they're looking to us as a resource, like, oh, here's how I got to do this. Here's what I should not do. Here's what I should do, right? If that resonates with them and that's valuable, hopefully at a certain point, like, you know what? Maybe I've tried to go to overseas, or I tried my cousin's nephew that lives in a basement that didn't really do a good job for me. Or I don't know. The biggest problems that I hear with companies and entrepreneurs that are starting a business or running a business, do you have a developer? Oh yeah, I was working. Like I had somebody contact me yesterday. I had a developer. They just disappeared. It's been like 3 months. I haven't heard from them. I don't know what to do with my website. Can you help me? I'm like, you gotta be kidding. This is crazy. This is still going on, you know? So site is hosted somewhere, which we found through like one of those directories to give us information where it's hosted, but she doesn't have access to it. So we're trying to think how to not to rebuild it, but how to recreate it in the quickest and easiest way to transfer it to our server so she has access, But that happens very often. Like developers not responding, nothing's been updated, they have no idea where it's at, like where it's being hosted, or posting content, educational content in on the right directories online so people can find you with good reviews. Obviously, reviews cannot take that away. Showing examples of projects so then, they can connect and be like, oh, I see you in several places and I see your work and I see your reviews. And then word of mouth, connections like I would ask you in the beginning. If you have clients that you work with that might be a good fit and then we're able to help, that's usually when somebody's like, hey, you should talk to this person. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Somebody just filled out a form on our website. A lady we worked with probably 7 years ago. She was a marketing director for another company. And we did their website, right? We did some SEO campaigns for them. It's been years. The company, I don't remember if it was sold or something happened to it. Anyway, she was looking for help. She talked to a couple people in the area. She found us online as well. So it's kind of like everything connected, everything aligned, right? And she filled out the form. She's like, I guess it was meant to be. So we have a call set up for tomorrow.
Awesome. There you
So
go.
usually it's several touch points for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Really interesting. And like, I guess because you have case studies and examples and reviews, it's not that hard to build trust once clients come to you. Like,
Yeah. I had a client that who signed up in Houston, found us online, also on a directory, reached out to us, decided to work with a local company, got screwed over with a local company. I was like, listen, let's do the planning phase first to really understand what you need now, right? Because as everybody else, like, I don't know, it's simple. What I need is simple. I understand it might be simple and maybe it's not, but let's really break this down. So she went with another company, got screwed over. She reached out back to us. I spoke to her probably was about 2 month process, 2.5 month process. She's like, I don't really need this planning phase. I said, I mean, that's how we start. Unless you have a detailed scope or already designed, no problem. We don't have to do it. But if you don't, like, we're just going to be spinning wheels. She said, okay. So we did that. We finished the project, finished within budget, the estimated amount of time. She wrote us the longest review that we also have online, and I sent to people because it was just such a good experience from exactly this. She didn't know who we are. She didn't know us well enough to trust us, right? We had a good conversation. I said, listen, if you want to go with the other company, no problem. But you have to understand, if you spend money with them and you're not going to get what you're going to need, you're going to have to come back to us and you have to spend money with us, you know? Like, I try to help people as much as possible and give them at least the right direction. So that's what happened. She came, she's like, okay, let's do it. We did it. We did the project, and the project was successful, and she's still running. And hopefully, we're going to be adding new features to the application. But it was like a perfect type of example. Somebody that was cold, cold prospect. She reached out, even though she reached out to us again from reviews, from examples of work. We spoke. She spoke to somebody else. She came back, and the project was successful.
Cool. So yeah, I guess you probably have a few of those cases where they had a prior bad experience with a developer or an agency and just have a bit of trust issues. I don't remember who said this, but it might have been like Alex Hormozy or something. I don't know about when a customer gets burned by a prior bad experience, tell them don't let your ex keep you from finding your wife.
Oh my God, that's so good. I like that. I like that. I'm going to use that. That is
Go
so
for
good.
it. It's not
Yeah,
mine. I don't remember where I got it, but yeah, which I think is so true, and it's definitely one of the harder things to do is to overcome prior bad experiences because they're coming into this with all these assumptions and they don't want to get screwed over, and then you have to work extra hard to rebuild that trust. But I think yeah, having the reviews and everything is really valuable for overcoming that.
for sure. That's a good
Yeah,
line. I'm really going to use that. That's
go ahead by all means.
awesome.
So, I guess what's next for MOS Creative in 2025? Any big goals, and how are you guys hoping to tackle those?
Yeah. Well, to tackle goals to grow, we got to bring more business in. So it's hopefully we bring the right clients. We have a lot of really good opportunities right now in the pipeline. But as they say, when it rains, it pours. So we're staying busy. But with all those opportunities hit at once, it's gonna be crazy. But one thing I've learned in business is that you can't just wait for those opportunities to actually realize, because if you might just go out of business. You always got to keep the pipeline full. It's very interesting because they're like right here on your doorstep,
Yep.
you just got to invite them in. Oh yeah. So there's a lot of really good opportunities. We're thinking about partnering with one of our clients as well on a project, really cool project, specifically in real estate space. So hopefully we build another product also for, as a partner to go to market, because I think there's huge opportunity there. And yeah, just keep on. Like, somebody asked me one time, is this what you want to keep on doing for, rest of your life? I was like, good question. I'm not really sure. But then I thought about it. You know what? If I get like, let's say if I sell the company and I move on to something else, it's probably going to be also within
Same
technology.
thing. Yeah.
Right. So I haven't really sold myself to why I should get out from the company that actually builds that, I should, go specifically focus on the product itself. I don't know. Maybe I have to this is more of me, I guess, realizing when it's time.
I guess when you find a product that's good enough and that's really taking off, follow the money and maybe find another executive to manage things for you at MOS.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't have to burn it down, I guess, but it's definitely probably a lot to manage multiple
It's a
things
lot.
at once. Yeah, and I'm sure you guys like, especially the nature of your work, you're probably wearing a lot of hats, doing a lot of things, and yeah, it
But
probably
yeah,
gets a little
I'm so used
challenging.
to it though that sometimes when it's like just have to focus on one thing, I'm like, this is it, So like throughout the years, I've just trained my mind that several things need to be done at once.
hmm
But it's interesting. Definitely never boring. I should say that.
Yeah, for sure. Good problem to have.
Yeah.
where can people find you if they're looking to get some websites, mobile apps, SEO done?
Sure. They can go to our website, www.moscreative.com, moscreative.com, or if somebody wants to email me, it's maxk@moscreative.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out today. This was a lot of fun, and I actually learned a lot. So it's
Awesome.
great to have you.
We can always do it again.